So, you clicked this video just to perv on some vulnerable, scantily clad lizards, didn't you? I know your game, you make me sick, but lucky for you, I'm a lizard pimp, so I've got all the latest sexy lizards for you to perv yourself silly on. This is of course from the Hunter and the Beast DLC. We're going to take a look at the Lizardmen units in battle against some of the Empire, and we'll have a little look at their new units too, although this video will be focused around the Men of Lizards. So, on to scaly battle. So here is my disgusting Lizardmen army, and let me first tell you that this is a custom funds battle, so this army costs about 25 grand. Don't expect to be bringing this in quick battles or anything, because it's going to be far too expensive. I'm only allowed to show you one battle, and I wanted to get all the units in. So let's begin with our lord, the almighty Kroxigor of Kroxigors, Nakai the Wanderer. He is quite literally and metaphorically a beast. If you draw your eyes to the unit card, you'll see he's got a lot of armor, leadership, fantastic melee attack, good melee defense, and a whole shitload of weapon strength, which is armor piercing. So he is an absolute melee monster, so he'll be able to smash all kinds of targets. For his abilities, he's got Primal Roar, which will make him all kinds of disgusting with 44 melee attack plus a physical resistance, which is not only to him, but to nearby allies as well. So, you know, mix that up with a group of Kroxigors and death will ensue. We're definitely going to do that in a minute. He also has the Miasma of Despair, which most notably drops leadership of the enemy, so potentially a very useful combo of abilities there. So that's our Lord and Saviour. Behind that, we've got the new Sacred Kroxigors, with their swanky gold-plated boxing gloves. They're very similar to regular Kroxigors, of course, except they have a good amount more melee attack, which is magical in its damage, so going to be great for taking out things with physical resistances. And they have a whole lot more weapon strength as well at 120, which is, of course, armor piercing, so yeah. Expect lots of damage from these Sacred Krokos, although of course expect to be paying more. They cost about 250 more than regular Kroxigors. And then we've got the cohort of Huatal, the Sacred Kroxigor Regiment of Renown. Very much a similar deal, still very strong, still lots of damage to output, but they have armor sundering, which is always very nice, very useful for taking down those elite targets. They also have a bit of a physical resistance as well, improved melee defense and melee attack, so they're pretty tough and can dish out more damage than the regular Sacred Kroxigors. Although if you are going to bring them, you better make good use of them because they cost a whopping 1700 funds. Now the rest of my army here, I've got a front line of Saurus warriors and Saurus spears on the edge. Not that you care about those though, you came here to see the dreadfully average Razordon pack. Over here, I've got them on my flanks. Now these are a bit of a question mark at the moment because honestly, they're not that great and no one can figure out what they're supposed to be doing. They're basically the same as Salamanders, but they have armor piercing damage instead of fire damage. And they cost about the same as Salamanders, but Salamanders seem to do way more damage overall. So what the point of these are, nobody really knows. They never really seem to put out much damage. They have to keep moving because they have a short range, so they can't really stick around. They're okay in melee, but they got pretty terrible melee attack, so not fantastic in the melee, more about the ranged attack, but that ranged attack just doesn't really do a lot. And like I say, Salamanders do better for basically the same price. So honestly, I'll expect this unit to change in some fashion, get something added to it so it makes it more useful, maybe a cost reduction even. We'll see. And then you've got the Regiment of Renown version, who is kind of the same story, except they just have poison, which again, isn't that much use in a faction that already has tons of poison. And they cost the same as the Umbral Tide at 1200, and again, the Umbral Tide are just going to be far better and far superior, so why you would ever bring these is beyond me. So like I say, expect these to change. Maybe they'll get 360 degree firing so they can skirmish, might make them useful. Maybe they'll just get more damage, they'll get a cost reduction, they could get swords, I don't know. They could do something with them to make them more viable and useful in any kind of battle. So, there you go, there's my Lizardmen army. Now let's take a look at our opposing army of the Empire. Only joking, you thought I forgot about the Dread Saurians. I know that's what you came for. So let's take a look, beginning with the feral Dread Saurian, who's not that feral because they've actually managed to get a hat on him somehow, so he's a little bit tamed. But either way, he is of course an absolute behemoth capable of dealing damage all over the shop whenever the hell he wants. A whopping 750 armor piercing weapon strength, decent melee attack, not so great in the melee defense though of course because he is just a giant lizard, it's hard to avoid swords when you're that big, and lots of armor as well, although leadership is lacking. It's a base of 60, so you do have to be careful of their leadership. Obviously designed for destroying infantry mainly, but they can do damage to all kinds of targets. At a whopping 2,300 funds though, don't expect him to be coming cheap. And I quickly do apologise for my mouse cursor being invisible. For some reason, the new Nvidia driver made my mouse disappear when I record. So sorry if you can't see that and it looks a bit weird. God damn you, Nvidia. But there you go, the feral Dread Saurian, your first Saurian of choice. A little bit more risky this one with low leadership and the potential to go into rampage. You may want to upgrade to the regular Dread Saurian, who is very much the same in terms of melee stats. Still the same damage, melee attack, melee defense, armor. Has a little bit more leadership though, so this one will survive and stay around a little bit longer. And as you can see, he has a family of skinks on his back, so he's capable of dishing out constant missile damage, which is poison as well. So he can be in melee and these will still be shooting things around. He can pull out of melee and run away and they'll still be shooting things. So much more useful in terms of complete damage output. So a much safer bet, more controllable and capable of more damage than the Feral Dread Saurian. Although at 3,200 cost, you are paying an arm and a leg and another leg for him. It's doubtful you'll ever want to bring more than one Saurian along because they're so goddamn expensive you won't have money for anything else. Especially if you bring the Shredder of Lustria, the Regiment of Renown version of the Dread Saurian. He has some pretty sweet colouring going for him. He is absolutely monstrous, obviously. Look at that strong jaw. That is going to destroy all manners of everybody. So the Shredder of Lustria, obviously an improvement over the regular Dread Saurian. His stats are very similar. He's got 80 leadership, which is 10 more than the Dread Saurian. He's got a bit more melee attack, same weapon strength and armor, same missile attack damage as well. Not too much ammunition on both of these as well, but still enough to put out plenty of damage. So they can charge around and just obliterate anyone and everyone for the most part. His abilities is where he shines though, with Dread Aversion, which gives a constant -8 leadership penalty to any enemies nearby. So in the late game, that is going to be absolutely huge considering everything else this thing can do. He also causes Encourage, which is pretty useful. If you want to afford him though, you are going to be paying 2 arms, 2 legs, and probably your genitals as well, because he costs a whopping 3,800, the most expensive unit in Total War Warhammer. So there you have all the new Lizardmen units, bar a couple of lords, and they're going to be facing all the new Empire units in this little army, which is controlled by the AI, so don't expect much. They're of course deployed ridiculously. I'll be doing another video in a couple of days playing as the Empire and showing you their units a bit better, but we'll have a quick look at them now. First off, we've got the Huntsmen. These are basically your run-of-the-mill archer, except they have anti-large missile damage, so going to be great for taking down cavalry, monsters, you name it. They're going to shoot it, it's probably going to die. They're okay in melee, they could take on some lesser infantry, but for the most part you should still be avoiding melee with them. And you can also have some sneaky opportunities with this unit because they have Vanguard deployment and Stalk. They can also fire while moving, but only forward. They do not have 360-degree firing. So a nice addition for the Empire, going to give them some more anti-large capabilities, which they're probably going to need facing these goddamn Saurians. Now, a cheap and cheerful unit, Archers. These are the basic of the basic archers. They only cost 325, so they're a very nice cheap missile option for the Empire. But you get what you pay for. They've only got 120 range, so a fair bit shorter than the usual 160 for most units. The missile damage isn't too bad, and their melee damage is, yeah. So don't expect tons of great things from these, but for the cost, you could get some good work out of them potentially, on lighted targets at least. Now, let's have a look at some of the Regiments of Renown versions of these. Where are they? Over here. So the Regiment of Renown version of the Archers, the Death Jacks. They have a good bit more missile damage than the normal unit, still the short range though, but most notably they have Vanguard deployment, Stalk, and Snipe, so they can stay hidden while they shoot things. So there's some nice sneaky potential with these. You could team them up with Huntsmen for some ultimate Vanguard deploying fun. If you want the Regiment of Renown version of the Huntsmen, then these are not them. These are the regular Huntsmen. Where are the Regiment of Renown version? Did I bring them? I'm sure they're in this army. They've got to be somewhere. There's all your war wagons. Oh, there they are. The bright blue boys that are curiously named the White Wolves. These are the Regiment of Renowned Huntsmen. Some improvements to stats in the missile damage and some of the melee stuff, so they can actually hold their own in melee a little bit. Still got crappy armor though, so don't expect too much from them, but nice to have. They also cause Encourage, so they'll help nearby units stay in the fight longer, and they are immune to psychology. So some different uses there. A little bit weird things for a missile unit to have perhaps, like Encourage and things, but nice that they can hang in melee a little bit. So those are all your new missile infantry units. Now to what you probably came for the Empire, the War Wagons. Your first choice, just called the War Wagon, is one with a bunch of men in the back which all have repeater handguns or something along those lines. So they put out constant armor-piercing missile damage in a 360-degree arc. So they can skirmish away and keep firing. They're not greatly fast though, with only 50 speed. They have a lot of ammunition, fairly decent range. Not fantastic in the melee though, with only 12 melee defense, so you've got to try and keep them away from any kind of melee fight. But if you can keep them alive for long enough, they will churn out damage with 4 wagons in each unit, so that can pump out a lot of damage over time. Then you've got the mortar version. Very much the same deal, except you got the long range artillery of a mortar. Now, of course, this thing can't fire in 360, it only fires straight in front of it like a normal mortar, but the beauty of this is that you now have mobile artillery that can get itself out of danger and can reposition when needed. This one costs 1100, the previous one cost 950, and the next one, the Hellblaster War Wagon, costs a whopping 1800. But rightly so, it's probably the most fun and probably my favourite new unit of this whole thing. This War Wagon is a Hellblaster Regiment of Renown version, so a whole ton of long range armour piercing damage. Going to be useful against so many foes, and again can reposition and get itself out of danger if it needs to. You may need to protect them early on because cavalry might catch them and take them out, because like I say, they're pretty crappy in melee. As the battle wears on and things get a bit safer, you could start to use them like a chariot and just charge them round for some free hits on people and maybe to break some leadership. And lastly, for this Empire army, our new lord, the Huntsman General. He is a missile lord, of course, mostly with missile damage, which is anti-large, very useful for taking down all these new big fancy monsters. He's okay in melee, of course, not fantastic, doesn't have a ton of armor, so he's not going to do well fighting other lords unless he can shoot them in the face. He's got stalk, he's got vanguard deployment, and he can fire whilst moving, of course, so very much your usual missile skirmishing lord, but with that anti-large damage. However, his true power lies within his mustache. If you look under there, you will see the future. And you may also have access to his fancy abilities. Firstly, the Arrow of Akshai, which is a magic missile capable of fire damage. And then the Hail of Fire, which will add fire damage and reload skill to himself and nearby units, so potential nice synergy, especially if you combine it with the Oil Flask, another magic missile which will inflict an enemy with a weakness to fire and will slow them down. So if you combine all these abilities and get a bunch of huntsmen and this guy firing at one unit, they're going to take them down very, very quickly with all that fire damage, especially if they're weak to fire already. So that is your new Huntsman General, got some nice abilities on him there. And that is all the new Empire units, bar a couple of Lords again, which I will show you in a couple of days. But for now, let's get back to this as a battle, and let's see what we can do with this horrible, disgusting army. My Razordon's getting shot by cannons a bit over here. Now this honestly isn't going to be much of a battle, because I've got 3 Dread Saurians, which is absolutely ridiculous. And you'll never be able to bring this army unless you play a silly custom battle, but this is just going to be a demonstration of all these new units for you. So we doth approach the Empire army, we're taking some shots from cannons. Just take a second to admire this map as well. This is one of the new maps, the Battle of Itza. It's a pretty nice map. I am quite the fan of it. Mostly a flat map, some trees, a few little things to work with. The environment around it looks amazing, of course. So yeah, a few new maps to look forward to with this update. My Saurians are approaching. They're of course outrunning my infantry, which means they're going in front and getting shot up a little bit. My Razordon's getting shot up over here in the background. Taking a little bit of damage, but not really sure what to do with them, just trying to kind of pepper things. This Saurian, the feral one, has got a little bit ahead. I'm going to try and pull it to the side a little bit so it doesn't get too shot up. And this is going to be the biggest danger for these huge Saurians. They're so big, missiles and artillery aren't really going to miss them too much. So they are going to take a potential ton of damage from missiles and artillery. And that's probably going to be the best way to take them down. This one getting stun locked by the looks of it. Why is it getting stunned so easily by a few bullets? Come on, Saurian, get your act together. The Shredder of Lustria, though, not fucking about, not giving two shits. He is charging in like an absolute maniac. Going to eat some missiles for breakfast. And I should also mention, I forgot to mention, with all 3 of these Dread Saurians, they all have an absolute arse ton of health. They have about 14,000 health, which, to put it in perspective, is about 3,000 or 4,000 more than an ancient Stegodon. So they've all got a whole ton of health, meaning they're obviously just absolute tanks. Look at them just wading through men, booting them out of the way. Hideous. It's hideous and glorious all at the same time. So those 2 in battle, my Saurus coming in as well. Over here, I've done what I said I was going to do, using Nakai's ability to increase melee attack and damage resistance of all these Sacred Croxagors. That Primal Roar. Fighting off the Altdorf Griffites, of course, a very dangerous, powerful unit. What the hell is this lizard doing? It's just a random flying lizard. I guess one of the Croxagors must have hit him up. I don't know how he flew that direction otherwise. Poor little fella. Get up, buddy, it's going to be okay. So trying to destroy these Griffites as quick as possible using this ability. I've dropped his leadership ability as well, reducing the enemy leadership there. Going to get rid of those Griffites nice and quick. A powerful unit for the Empire. Now gone. Everything else in the center is just broken and running away scared and terrified because, you know, there's 2 massive freaking monsters charging around. Over here, my Razordon's done a little bit of damage, shooting a little bit, but not really doing a great deal. Like I said, they're a little bit useless at the moment. My Feral Dread Carnosaur, not Dread Carnosaur, Dread Saurian, doing okay. He's fighting some great swords, he's slapping them about, he's taking a fair bit of damage, he's taking some missiles, but he's alright. So yeah, this is just mostly an absolute slaughter because there's too many Dread Saurians and the AI doesn't know what the hell it's doing. The general's broken already, even though he's barely lost any health. Let's just admire this for a minute. I'll shut my face. Look at the absolute terror in that little guy's face. I want to try and capture it. Look. If I don't put that in the thumbnail, I'll never forgive myself. Look at the absolute dread. He's stunned. He doesn't know what he's just seen. How fucking big is it? Poor little fellas. They've got no chance. These poor little Empire boys. What are they ever going to do? My infantry's smashing through things. My Saurians are smashing everything. It's a glorious slaughter. Come on, Razordons. Do something useful. They've got 2 kills so far. Going to get them into melee now. Going to try and chase down these huntsmen. We'll see if they can do some stuff in melee. Got some cool animations. So they'll do well at chasing down skirmishers, perhaps, because they can beat them up in melee easy enough, but at range they just don't seem to really do a lot. They're very lackluster so far. My Feral Dread Saurian taking a good bit of damage, but he's still got thousands and thousands of health left. Got some great swords in here to worry about. Croxagor's coming over now. Nakai's coming. He's skipping his way over. That's a funny little dance. He is. Oh dear. That was horrible. Oh, look at it. Sauruses, Croxagors, Saurians, whatever. They're just dinosaurs everywhere murdering everything. It's a good job the dinosaurs became extinct. Otherwise, this would be us right now, getting smashed by dinosaurs. So the Empire breaking all over the place. There's little they can do. What the hell is that? Some rock or something? You just batted down a rock. I don't know what's going on anymore. There's bits of human everywhere. It's a glorious slaughter for the Croxagors and the Lizardmen and Nakai. Not a lot of Empire left now. They're all going home. Too much terror and dread from all these Saurians, I think. One of them's gone into rampage. So there we go. The absolute brutal glory of the new Lizardmen units and how much they destroy everything. Maybe in my video for the Empire in a couple of days I'll switch around and I'll play as the Empire army here and try to beat that Lizardmen army. And we'll see what we can do. We'll see if we can make that happen. I'm not sure if we'll be able to do it, but I'll give it a goddamn good try. Those 3 Saurians getting tons of kills, of course. Most of the work being theirs. Absolutely disgusting. But like I say, the price tags of those is pretty hefty. So it's going to be interesting to see how people use them in multiplayer and things like that. But yeah, some stuff to look forward to. And one other thing to look forward to, which I'd like to point out in this video, as it is coming with the next update, it's something that's long overdue in Total War Warhammer. It's unit caps. You can see in the bottom right here where my mouse should be. There's a unit cap button in custom battles. You can click it on and off. This is obviously going to be turned on in quick battles and things all the time. But it now means that we have unit limits. You can see these orc boys. They're limited to 0 or 5 at the moment. So when I take 5 of them, bang, they get grayed out. I've hit the unit cap. I now cannot spam those to silly amounts. The same with other units as well. Regiments of Renown, you can only have 3 of them. So if I take these Crimson Killers, they not only count as a Black Orc unit, so that's 1 of 5 of them, but also it's a Regiment of Renown unit taken up in the unit cap. So that's some nice touches. Going to limit things, going to make things a little bit more interesting. Means people are going to have to think about their builds a little more. See, now I've got 3 Regiments of Renown. The other ones are all grayed out, so I can't take any more. And there's all these kind of limits on different units. Single large monsters now have a limit of 3, and certain things only have a limit of 2, like these Arachnarok spiders. You see, I can only bring 2 of them. And that includes the Regiment of Renown version. So if I bring the Lady Spider, the Queen, and then I bring an original Ragnarok, that's it. My Arachnarok limit is now hit. I can't bring any more of those. So nice that we now have unit caps in place to control things a little better. I do wonder if that 2 limit is on most large units. Let's look at some Tomb King stuff. The War Sphinx. We can only have 2 of those. So yeah, we got limits in place now. These are the kinds of limits we had to add in my tournament just to get things kind of fair. But now they're just mainstay of the battles. So it's going to be awesome. Things will be much better. You can see a bunch of other caps there. 360-degree fire arc units are limited. Missile cavalry chariots, blah, 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 blah. You can see it all there. Yes, it's wonderful that we now have unit caps that should make the game a little bit more fairer and more competitive. And we don't have to worry about silly cheese shit of 5 Carnosaurs coming along, because it simply cannot be done. So yeah, just thought I'd show this to people because I think it's freaking awesome, personally. But the only one that I do have a bit of a problem with is that there's no artillery cap. So you can still bring as much artillery as you like. You can only bring 5 of each unit, but you can still bring more than that. You could bring 10 artillery if you want to, potentially. So that's a little bit weird that they didn't limit the artillery to stop those kind of cheesy artillery heavy builds. Not that they tend to do very well because they have nothing to fight once the melee begins, but either way, it's good news overall. For the most part, that is a good start to getting some unit caps in the game and making things a little bit more fair. Anyway, so there you go, the new Lizardmen units, some of the new Empire units. Like I said, in a couple of days I'll have a video focusing more on the Empire units, and then later after that I'll have my usual unit roster rundown video that I normally do for these DLCs, so you can expect all those coming, and maybe some other things along the way as well. So I hope you've enjoyed this, thanks for watching, I will see you in the future.